I believe we're all set.
Great, thank you, and good morning. This is a public hearing of the Joint Standing Committee on Energy, Utilities, and Technology for the purpose of considering the nomination by the governor of Mr. Andrew Butcher of Portland for appointment as the president of the Maine Connectivity Authority. With me here this morning is the members of the committee. I am Mark Lawrence. I'm a state senator from Southern York County, and I am the Senate chair of the committee. And I'll just ask the House chair of the committee, my co-chair, Representative Berry, to introduce himself.
Good morning, everyone. Great to be with you. Sorry for the late start. And my name is Seth Berry. I represent House District 55, which is Bowdoin, Bodenham, and most of Richmond. And looking forward to today's hearing.
Okay, and since this is our first hearing of the second legislative session, I'll just point out we are on Zoom again at this time conducting our hearing. So it means it's a little bit different. It's a little bit more awkward in how we do things. Normally, we would go around the horseshoe at this point and introduce members of the committee. But since we are not in the room, I'm just going to call on members of the committee to introduce themselves as we go around the virtual horseshoe. So Representative Wadsworth.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good morning. My name is Nathan Wadsworth, and I represent 5 towns in southern Oxford County: Hiram, Porter, Brownfield, Freiburg, and Lovell.
Senator Stewart.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good morning, folks. My name is Trey Stewart. I represent District 2 in the Maine State Senate, which includes 51 communities in Aroostook and Penobscot counties, and I reside in Presque Isle.
Representative Carlo.
Good morning. I'm Nathan Carlo, and I represent the communities of Buxton, Hollis, and Saco.
Representative Grochowski.
Morning, all. Happy New Year. I'm Representative Nicole Grochowski. I represent House District 132, City of Ellsworth, Town of Trenton.
Senator Vitelli.
Good morning. Thank you, Senator. I'm Eloise Vitelli. I represent Senate District 23, which is all of Saginaw County and the town of Dresden in Lincoln County. And I'm pleased to be here this morning with everyone virtually.
Representative Grignon.
Good morning. My name is Representative Chad Grignon. I represent District 118, Athens, Cornville, Harmony, Bingham, up north to Moose River Valley, Jackman.
Representative Foster.
Good morning and Happy New Year. I'm Steve Foster. I represent the citizens of the towns of Garland, Exeter, Stetson, Dexter, and Charleston in District 104. And on their behalf, Mr. Chair, I'd just like to express my concerns that we are not meeting in person as we did for 5 meetings of the EUT committee this last fall. I believe that that's a much more correct way to do this, but I understand the circumstances. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Representative Sachs.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good morning, everyone. My name is Melanie Sachs, and I represent House District 48, which is Freeport and part of Pownell. Thank you.
And before I get into the public hearing part of this, I just want to go over some reminders regarding Zoom meetings. And I appreciate the comments from Representative Foster. We all hope for a time we're going to be back together. We were able to meet, I believe, for 6 meetings together, and we work much better when we're able to meet in person. But it is what it is, and we just have to deal with it. And I just want to remind everybody that we are on Zoom. As you look at your screen, Joseph Butcher is a representative of the governor's office. Andrew Butcher is the prospective president, and Heather Johnson is the commissioner of the Department of Economic and Economic and Community Development. Thank you. And you see on our screen, there's an EUT Committee Room AV, audio visual. That is a new feature that's being added in, I believe, to each of the committees. It allows people who are in the committee room to see the Zoom screen when we are on Zoom. So it's kind of a hybrid system of how we do things. A reminder that on Zoom, I just ask when you're not speaking that you mute yourself, and you have to be aware that any noises in your background when you're off mute come through on the Zoom. This is being live streamed and recorded. So be careful of what you say and how you say things. Treat it as if we were in the committee room, and it goes into the permanent record of the committee. Also, on chat comments, we ask that you not post in the chat comments. Chat comments are public. They are part of the committee process. So do not post anything in chat that you don't want to become part of the public record. With that, I'll start this committee meeting. Under the law and the joint rules of the legislature, this committee is required to hold this public hearing and to recommend either the confirmation or the denial of the nominee by majority vote of the committee members present and voting. And you do have to be live on Zoom. We do have to be able to see you in order for you to vote. As chairs of the committee, Representative Berry and I, we will then send written notice of the committee's recommendation to the President of the Senate, which will hold a confirmation hearing. And I believe that will be on January 26th, not a confirmation hearing, but either accept or reject the committee's recommendation. The committee will hear testimony and have an opportunity to question the governor or her representative, the nominee, and other persons present who wish to speak for or against the nomination. This meeting is currently being live streamed on the committee's YouTube channel. This means that anyone who is a participant in the meeting, and the participants are those people on the screen right now, via Zoom, can be seen and also heard if their microphone is unmuted. People testifying cannot be heard until they have been called upon to speak. This meeting will be recorded and available to view on the committee's YouTube channel soon after the meeting has been concluded. Pursuant to Title III, Section 157 of the Maine statutes, which requires there to be an affirmative motion to recommend confirmation of the nominee, the chair recognizes the co-chair, Representative Berry, for the purposes of making such a motion.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move that the Joint Standing Committee on Energy, Utilities, and Technology recommend confirmation of Mr. Andrew Butcher of Portland for appointment as the president of the Maine Connectivity Authority.
Thank you, Representative Berry. A copy of the statutory requirements for this position is available on our website. Normally, it would be at the rostrum if we were public, if we were meeting in the committee room, but now it is available on our website. The chair now recognizes the Commissioner of the Department of Economic and Community Development, Heather Johnson, for the purposes of making a statement concerning this nomination. Commissioner Johnson.
Thank you. Senator Lawrence, Representative Berry, and members of the Energy, Utilities, and Technology Committee. My name is Heather Johnson, and I'm the Commissioner of the Department of Economic and Community Development. I'm honored to be here today to testify in support of Andrew Butcher's nomination to be the first president of the Maine Connectivity Authority. The Maine Connectivity Authority is charged with achieving universal availability of high-speed broadband in Maine and was proposed by Governor Mills and created through bipartisan legislation sponsored by Senator Bennett, co-sponsored by Representative Berry, and the co-chairs of the legislature's Broadband Caucus. The legislature unanimously passed this bill. The governor signed it into law. The Maine Connectivity Authority will put Maine in the driver's seat when it comes to expanding affordable broadband. The authority will look at markets that need support and utilize a new suite of financial tools that allow the authority to work with the private sector to find creative individual solutions that meet both the infrastructure build out and look at affordability to ensure all Maine people can have access. Maine is uniquely positioned to execute this type of creative solution. Maine has strong providers who are willing to work on difficult projects. Now we have an authority that will have a number of financial mechanisms at their disposal to work with the private and public sector to address the needs of the market. As the Maine Connectivity Authority Board Human Resources Committee and the governor began a national search for the president, we selected a number of key attributes and skills that were needed to lead MCA. They included effective collaboration skills that would keep all parties at the table, even during difficult negotiations, an ability to work with diverse community leaders across the state, rural and urban, and an ability to understand complex financial and technological projects, and someone that can translate an effective plan into daily action. The board received resumes from across the country from some very talented people that were interested in leading the MCA. Andrew stood out among those talented candidates. Andrew Butcher is qualified to lead this effort. He serves as the director of the, he has served as the director of the Maine Broadband Coalition. In addition, he was the director of innovation and resilience for the Greater Portland Council of Governments and has extensive experience in broadband expansion and deployment. As director of the Broadband Coalition, an organization that represents and advocates for businesses, communities, and internet users to secure affordable and equitable access to broadband connectivity, he co-led the successful effort to pass the 2020 bond proposal, providing $15 million to expand broadband. He also partnered with the Maine Technology Institute and the Connect Maine Authority and the Maine Community Foundation to oversee data collection and support broadband development. Under his leadership, the organization has grown 10 times in size, bringing in new members to promote the importance of broadband. As Director of Innovation and Resilience at GPCOG, Mr. Butcher supported the agency's lending programs, sustainability, resilience, and broadband initiatives. He has launched innovative financing programs, developed a resilience core to enhance capacity for local government agencies, and spearheaded multi-town collaboration efforts to build out smart and connected infrastructure. With his experience in and dedication to broadband development, Mr. Butcher will be an excellent leader for the Maine Connectivity Authority as it begins improving internet access across the state. Thank you for your time, and I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Commissioner Johnson. Are there questions from the committee for the commissioner? Seeing none, thank you very much, Commissioner. Now that we have a little break, I do want to introduce another member of the committee who has joined us, Representative Paige Ziegler. If he's there, Paige, I just ask you to introduce yourself. You need to unmute. There you go.
I did. Good morning. And the first thing that this president of the board should do is get me better connectivity. My name is Representative Paige Ziegler. I represent District 96, the 7 towns in Waldo County of Belmont, Liberty, Lincolnville, Montville, Morrow, Palermo, and Searsmont. And I will mute.
Thank you, Representative Ziegler. We'll now go on to recognize Mr. Andrew Butcher for the purposes of making a statement concerning this nomination.
Thank you. Good morning. Senator Lawrence, Representative Berry, and members of the Joint Standing Committee on Energy, Utilities, and Technology. Happy New Year to you. My name is Andrew Butcher. I live in Portland, and I'm grateful to join you today as the nominated candidate for the president of the Maine Connectivity Authority. It's good to see you again. As we've discussed in the past, how we connect to each other matters now more than ever. While the COVID-19 pandemic has revealed societal-wide vulnerabilities, many exacerbated in Maine, it's opened the possibility of a transformation previously considered impossible. The job of the Maine Connectivity Authority is to turn the challenge of affordable, reliable, universal digital connectivity in Maine into not just a possibility, but a present force, focused on performance and enabling new prosperity. The work is foundational to the future of Maine, and I am honored by the potential opportunity to make it a reality as the inaugural president of the MCA. Over the course of the last few years, it's been my privilege to help advance the state's connectivity goals on behalf of the Maine Broadband Coalition. I've grown the reach, capability, and impact of the network while spearheading significant advances in the policy, funding, and strategy for the state at large. As a cross-disciplinary leader, I've forged new partnerships, created valuable programming, and secured a growing network of investments and stakeholders. I consider myself lucky to have gained such insight into the policy, politics, data, and challenges of the state of connectivity here in Maine. As a result, I'm compelled by a vision for what could be possible and even more motivated to get it done. I feel clear about what is needed, how to get started, and how to achieve long-term success. This will require a balanced approach towards immediate results and capacity for the long term. I'm proud to say that I have over 15 years of experience and a track record negotiating such short-term and long-term objectives. As a successful entrepreneur, nonprofit executive, and public sector leader, I pride myself on embracing bold vision with a relentless orientation towards execution. I can turn ideas into action, grow teams, and enable an upward spiral of investment, productivity, profile, and partnerships. The concurrent priorities of the Connectivity Authority require somebody with a versatility of knowledge, network, and context to get the capital working, demonstrate impact, leverage resources, and sustain capacity. I can do that, and I'm hungry to get to work for everyone in Maine. In that spirit, I truly love Maine and have my whole life. I have deep family roots here for over 70 years when my grandparents bridged the rusticators generation, and my father was inspired by the Back to the Earth movement, leading to several siblings, cousins, and extended family growing roots here. When my wife and I relocated 4.5 years ago, we left successful careers in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, to be close to the places and people that we love. I'm inspired by my wife's work in support of children, families, artists, and communities as the executive director of the Maine Children's Museum and Theater. And my two children experience a microcosm of the changes in diversity in the world at large as they're proud students in Portland Public Schools. The challenge of how to better connect is significant, the opportunity unprecedented, and the need at an all-time high. I'm grateful and humbled by the opportunity to focus energy on the future of a more connected future for everyone in Maine, and I look forward to getting to work. If I may be so bold, I'd like to turn an old Maine adage, "You can't get there from here," on its head with the mantra that we can get there from here, and I'm eager to do my fair share of the lifting. Thank you for the opportunity, the trust, and your ongoing partnership. I'm happy to respond to any questions that you might have.
Thank you very much, Mr. Butcher. Are there questions from any of the committee members for the nominee? You can either raise your virtual hand or your actual hand, and I'll recognize you. Senator Vitelli.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and welcome, Mr. Butcher, to the committee for this hearing this morning. I was definitely impressed at looking over your resume, and as a long ago graduate of the University of Pittsburgh, I remember fondly the Steel City having cleaned up its act since I was there. My question is, just taking off on some of what you said in your opening remarks, is that you indicated you were clear about what is needed and you're good at both addressing short and long-term goals. So my question is, what's the first thing that's needed to move this forward?
Thank you, Senator. In some ways, that's a hard question because there are many first things that need to happen. And I'm glad to have been able to be engaged on contract and help support some of the first initial activities over the course of the last couple of weeks. And those things entail getting the organization in a place of capability. So putting in place organizational structure, everything from establishing a bank account to being able to submit the application to the Department of Treasury to receive capital project funds. So we need to do the things to stand up the organization. But strategically, we also have an opportunity to distill stakeholder input over the last 6 months for the Connectivity Authority into a concise and cogent strategic summary, which the authority has been seeking public comment on for the last 3 weeks. With that distilled strategic summary, really we have to get the money to work as quick as possible. In order to get the money to work, we have to have the organizational structure. In order to sustain the impact, we also have to build an organizational team. So as soon as possible, I'd like to begin putting in place components to adding team members with a complementary set of skills. And then I think we have a really strong strategy in place, and it's a matter of executing on that and being adaptive as to the priorities of the time. Happy to elaborate on any and all of that.
Great, thank you.
Any follow-up, Senator Vitelli? Representative Foster?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and Mr. Butcher, congratulations on your nomination. Thank you for taking the time here to meet with us. I have a few concerns, but I'll start off with one that I think I've raised before, and that is that CMA was formed with the idea that it would be an opportunity for rural Maine to get connected. And you being a resident of southern part of the state continues to raise my concern even further that the folks in my area, and I'm in central Maine, I can't even speak for northern Maine, but rural Maine is a lot different for us than rural Maine for you. And I refer to areas such as Gray, outside of Gray, and I know there is a lot of woods in southern Maine as well. My concern is how you, working with the board, will carry out the mission that I saw in the way that the bill was worded to help folks in my part of the state and in even more so in northern Maine. I'll leave that for you. Thank you.
Certainly. Thank you, Representative Foster, and thank you for emphasizing that concern and that priority. It is one that I share, and I'll sort of respond in a couple ways. One of the best things about having spent the last couple of years at the Greater Portland Council of Governments is the diversity of the Greater Portland region. Balancing urban, suburban, and rural needs is a huge priority that I've been grateful to get a sense of how that takes shape in Maine. And within that framework, through the work with the Broadband Coalition, it's been incredible to connect with stakeholders throughout the state. And I've been really proud of being able to recruit over a third of the membership for the advisory committee from representing rural and central and northern Maine representation. I'm not from rural Maine. I'm not from northern Maine, but this doesn't mean that I don't appreciate and sympathize with the needs and the interests. On a very personal level, as the youngest of 5 older sisters, I was brought up with, well, to learn 2 really important lessons. One is to always listen first, and 2, to kind of assume that I'm going to be wrong regardless. But what that has instilled in me is, I think, a really good orientation towards listening to different interests and trying to find common ground. That enabled me to serve as a mediator for the city of Boulder, Colorado since the age of 16. So while I'm not from a particular place, it certainly means that I have a deep level. It doesn't mean that I don't have a deep level of sympathy and understanding for that place. I do hear the voice of rural and northern Maine. I wouldn't be here if I didn't. And I'm really grateful for those that I reached out to in lead up to today's hearing to provide their support. And I'm glad to have been able to establish a number of relationships with Maine's most rural and remote communities. I'm happy to elaborate on that if we want to talk further about capacity building throughout Maine in an effort to engage both the already engaged and informed communities and an effort to further engage those that are not engaged and with the least amount of connectivity. But thank you for that question.
Any follow-up, Representative Foster? I saw your hand up for a moment, Representative Carlo. Did you have a question or did you withdraw it?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I did have a question, and I'm satisfied with the response to the previous question.
Okay, Senator Stewart.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Congratulations, Mr. Butcher, on your nomination today. And I feel confident that you'll be confirmed today. Do have some questions, one of which was already brought up. And I actually think it's more a function, candidly, of it's not your fault that you live in Portland, right? I don't necessarily hold that against you. I'm disappointed that there isn't more of a geographic dispersion within the committee as a whole. And I've made those remarks on the floor of the Senate before when the other nominees were being confirmed. And I was assured then that my concerns would be addressed when we got to this hearing. And that did not in fact happen, which I think is unfortunate and a missed opportunity for the state of Maine. Again, not your fault. One thing I do want to talk about today, and hoping you can provide some more insight to. You'll recall a hearing that you participated in with the EUT committee. There was a number of hearings you participated in, but one in particular that I still have some concerns about in your present capacity, which is not in the capacity that you're seeking here, but with regard to different types of technological capabilities being used for that last mile connectivity throughout Maine. The sense that I got from you at that hearing was that it was basically anything that's not fiber to the home is not going to be something that your group was supporting at that time. At least that was the takeaway from the position that I understood that day at the hearing. That's a big problem for my constituents, because my constituents, I represent 51 towns in rural Maine. There's a couple pockets of urban areas. I live in one of them. But the rest of the, and even in Presque Isle here, there's plenty of places I could show you if you want to go door to door with me, that they're not going to be able to be served by fiber. And they're not going to be able to be served by those more expensive technologies that are not going to be able to yield any sort of long-term benefit for basically the internet service providers. That hearing, you'll recall, was about adopting a new technology at the time called Starlink, and looking at different ways to get creative about how we address that last mile, particularly in rural Maine. And so my concerns and my question for you is, can we expect something different in this new capacity out of this group with regard to the last mile? Because what we're really talking about when we say last mile is folks that live in rural Maine, folks that live on dirt roads or long roads in rural areas where there's maybe a couple houses per mile, and they're tough to serve because of that dynamic with revenues and the traditional model of internet service. So how would you respond to that? What is going to be different this time? And is there any chance of getting a commitment from you today that my constituents will be better served by this new organization, and that your group will be looking very creatively and not excluding any sort of new technologies from serving them?
Thank you, Senator Stewart. I'm very glad that you've asked this question. I've thought a lot about it on a couple levels, and so I hope my response isn't going to be too long-winded, but I have a couple levels of response. First and foremost, there's absolutely a role for integrating non-fiber solutions into the Maine Connectivity Authority strategy. Wireless and low Earth orbit solutions like Starlink will likely continue to play a role in enabling solutions in both extremely remote places as well as urban and competitive markets. How we incorporate public subsidy is important to be mindful about if we want to stretch public funds as far as possible for the long term. So experts do agree that fiber is a gold standard, but experts also agree that Maine is the epitome of a very tricky case. And so I believe that we want to deploy the gold standard where we can do it practically and quickly, but we need all options to be on the table, and we definitely can't leave people behind. And fortunately, with the authority, we now have the ability to be strategic, proactive, and iterative in the approach. So the technology is rapidly evolving, as are the economics. My previous concern had been around making sure that we don't leave people with alternative technology and minimal options for the long term. As far as how we're proactively trying to address that, we have incorporated a very clear set of goals around alternative technologies in our strategic summary. And we've distilled it into an explicit activity of evaluating alternatives for strategic deployment, and believe very much that we'll want to be proactive in identifying partnerships for the development of a series of pilot projects in trial and various technologies, evaluate how best to layer into a multi-phased approach in various places. So I just want to reiterate personally, and I think we as an agency are open to all solutions and options, and recognize that we have to be wise stewards of this once in a lifetime opportunity. So, I do choose my words carefully, because I think, fiber Zionists will feel that this isn't a strong enough commitment, and alternative advocates may assert that it's too conservative. But I very much think that it's that balanced and pragmatic approach that is exactly what's needed.
Thank you. Any follow-up, Senator Stewart?
Not at this time. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay, Representative Berry?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and Mr. Butcher, great to be with you. Appreciate your willingness to serve in this very, very important capacity. I just wanted to ask you, based on your experience of working with legislators in the past, if you can convey any of the wisdom that you've learned about how to deal with the 186, 187 legislators that you'll be reporting to periodically, and what takeaways you've had from your experiences with the Broadband Caucus and other venues along those lines. It'll be a two-way street.
Absolutely. I was hoping that that's what we were doing today. And I frankly would like as much of it and as possible. The opportunity last year to facilitate the Broadband Caucus on behalf of the Broadband Coalition was a really, really important opportunity to refine, not just to share the messages from the Broadband Coalition, but to better understand keys and concerns. I think through the Broadband Caucus, I think probably helped galvanize for me a balanced and pragmatic approach in regard to the alternative technologies that we were just talking about. And I think that, everyone acknowledges that the state has been extremely under-resourced in the ability to address some of the challenges. That means that the staff that's been in place to work on broadband have been hyper-focused on just doing the work to get the money out. I think one of the best things about the Connectivity Authority is that we will have capacity to engage stakeholders across the spectrum, most especially the legislature. To be very specific about it, I look forward and truly hope that I'm able to spend time with you, Senator Stewart, and the rest of you that are interested around alternative technologies in prioritizing both the pilot projects and the partnerships, and putting in place the performance measures that help us better test what it looks like to have short-term solutions, how we bridge those short-term solutions to long-term solutions, and maximize benefit for as many people as possible. So I think that there's a huge opportunity for an ongoing collaborative relationship, and I truly look forward to having that.
Great, thank you.
Senator Stewart.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Different line of questioning. Obviously, so in Maine, we have the Connect Maine Authority, right? And this group was intended to be a different approach to achieving the goal of broadband expansion and access to high-speed internet across the state. So in the initial documents that have come out from the committee so far, there's been some talk about essentially adopting those same rules that were implemented for Connect Maine, and in fact, even providing money from this authority to Connect Maine. I'm wondering if you could comment on that. It's a little tricky, obviously, because you're not in the position yet. It's nothing formal yet that's been adopted, but I definitely am concerned about sort of redundancies here. Is this going to be another organization do the same thing, or are you planning on doing something different with this organization as it moves forward and as you grab the reins here?
Thank you. Yes. As to Connect Maine, I think, as I mentioned, it's been not a lot of people doing a lot of work, and so I'm very pleased. And I think that we all owe the Connect Maine staff and board a huge debt of gratitude for the tireless work and tremendous progress to date. And I'm very pleased that we've been able to get to work in thinking strategically around how to align and ultimately integrate efforts, so that there isn't a concern of redundancy, and so that there is clear public perception around what are requirements and who is responsible. And I believe that we are on target for a report to this body in just a few weeks, and have been operating from a shared commitment to not disrupt the current pipeline of funding and expectations, and to get the money working as soon as possible. As to I think as to another part of your question, the Connectivity Authority will be the recipient of a known amount of at least $250 million. Those funds have their own parameters associated with them. mostly they are aligned and mostly they are similar, but there are distinctions and there are differences. And fortunately, I think the state of Maine has been predicting the evolution in the market space and has been adjusting rules and standards accordingly. But I think first and foremost, the Connectivity Authority is going to have to be mindful of the parameters set forth by the funding sources. And that will layer in to the ultimate alignment and integration with Connect Maine. Does that, and to another part of your question, I will say that in the near future, I'm hopeful, and I think that Connectivity Authority and Connect Maine will be able to collectively announce some initial strategy as to deployment of a first round of funding. Does that address some of your questions?
I think so. Again, I recognize you're in kind of it's a tough question to answer at this point, given the position of things. I mean, I think that we'll see when that report comes out, what sort of the game plan is, but I guess I would just more than anything sort of caution against, getting too close to that sun in terms of just a redundant, setup in terms of grant opportunities and the like, if that makes sense. Hopefully that makes sense, I guess, more than
that last part resonates in particular as an entrepreneur who is supported and directly pursued grants in a couple different ways. I can absolutely assure you that I'm committed to reducing redundancy and complexity for those seeking grants. And I do think that that is one of the great things that is taking shape right now in cohesion with Connect Maine and the Connectivity Authority. And the progress that Connect Maine has made is streamlining that grant process and streamlining the access so that there's more clarity and fewer hoops. And I'm very much committed to ensuring that there's not redundancy. And I think that that's a good thing to have a level of good relationship in place between Connect Maine and the Connectivity Authority.
Any follow-ups, Senator Stewart? Okay, thank you. Representative Carlo?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and congratulations, Mr. Butcher, on your nomination. I'm very appreciative of your willingness to serve the people of Maine as president of the Maine Connectivity Authority. I also want to thank you and recognize you for your work with the Broadband Caucus. I attended a few of those meetings and I found those to be very helpful. The communities of Hollis and Buxton, which I represent in the state legislature, are very rural, and many of my constituents are underserved. They do not have the broadband access that they need to access their work, school, and personal activities. I come to the committee with a wide and impressive range of experience and qualifications, but that being said, I had the opportunity to review your application packet and the responses to the legislative staff questionnaire. In your packet, you didn't mention the word rural at all. So I want to give you the opportunity to discuss with the committee any specific accomplishments that you're proud of in working with rural communities specifically in accessing this critical piece of technology.
Absolutely. Thank you, Representative Carlo. And please forgive any omission along those lines. And because I think one of the things I feel most proud about with the Broadband Coalition is the expansion of partnerships and stakeholders in the most rural areas in the state. So a couple specifics. I've been really pleased. I think I mentioned that I was pleased to add over a third of the advisory committee members from places such as Aroostook and Penobscot counties. One of the things I'm most excited about to have completed with the Broadband Coalition is just taking shape now, is the development of a community of practice, in recognizing that the work that's happening that's most successful in deployment of broadband throughout the state is being led by a network of practitioners in everywhere from the Maine West community to Aroostook County to Washington County. Those practitioners already have an informal network in place. But what we designed was a program to boost their capacity, both by creating a sort of super volunteer network known as the Connectivity Boosters, which provides sort of a targeted level of education and capacity for those practitioners, as well as a more formal and consistent education program so that those practitioners can both share their lessons learned, but then also share additional resources. And I emphasize that because of that network of 12 practitioners, I believe about 10 of them represent Maine's most rural communities. And I think the thing that I've learned through the Broadband Coalition is that some of the most important work we can do is to distill resources and make them as accessible as possible to the people that are already doing the work. I think one of the things I feel confident about in making sure that rural Maine is well connected is that there are already experts within rural Maine who simply just need access to resources and the ability to trial out different solutions in different places. And this is again where we get to some of the alternative technologies. We are now in a place where we can be more iterative and adaptive to the needs of every different place, whether it is a rural community or whether it's more urban and suburban community. And so I think one of the things that I feel very excited and grateful for is to have familiarity with that network and those sets of stakeholders to be able to meet them where they're at and actually provide the resources that are most appropriate based upon where they're at. I hope that helps address your question.
Are you all set on your question, Representative Berry? I believe it was Representative Berry, or maybe it was Representative Carlo. I apologize. You're all set? Okay, thank you. Representative Wadsworth.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Congratulations, Mr. Butcher, and Happy New Year. I'm sure by now you figured out that Mainers are frugal people, and you may be joining this authority at a time of unprecedented federal funding. And Tim Schneider educated the committee that the authority may have up to $250 million to deploy. How can you be frugal with that much money, and how do you get the most out of that for Maine?
Absolutely. Thank you for asking this question. I am familiar with the challenges and needs of a startup organization. What I'm not familiar with is the lack of fear on a daily basis of how myself and or team members are going to get paid. That fear doesn't exist in this situation because there's actually money on the table. So I'm unfamiliar with that dynamic, but I think what that familiarity in the past has enabled me is the ability to be very resourceful and scrappy and intentional, both in an organizational level and how to make the dollars stretch as far as possible. That will always be a need for any organization, and I think the Connectivity Authority is no different. What we also have the ability to do by the design and intent of the statute enabling the authority is to deploy financial mechanisms that do allow for us to be both frugal and resourceful through the duration of the organization. So we as a state have never had the ability to create a revolving loan fund at a low interest for local internet service providers or even communities or other partners to be able to pursue low cost capital to be able to implement their connectivity needs. Not only does that stretch the dollars even further, but it also does create, even at a low interest level, the ability to generate ongoing sources of support for the organization and for the connectivity needs of the state. It also means that, there is the need ultimately to think about how to spend a little bit, to save a little bit, and to make a little bit, in that there are resources being allocated to the state, and there are a number of resources that are competitive throughout the country. And we will need to have in place some degree of capacity to be able to pursue additional resources so that we can provide both adaptive resources for places and to be more proactive in additional projects elsewhere. So, I wish I could say there's much more of a catch-all response to that, but I'm very excited to be able to be thoughtful and considerate in both how to be scrappy, resourceful, and intentional for the future.
Any follow-up, Representative Wadsworth? Any other questions from the committee? Representative Foster?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And along that same line, Mr. Butcher, I'll make a comment. First of all, although Commissioner Johnson mentioned that this bill to create this authority passed unanimously, basically under the hammer, I was opposed to creating another larger bureaucracy when it came before the committee. As far as I'm concerned, whether it was Connect Maine operating on a $1.5 million budget, or in this case, Connect Maine Authority operating under a 150 to, I think you mentioned the number, $400 million budget. This is ratepayer and taxpayer money that we're talking about. We need to keep that in mind. And I will forego my question. I think Mr. Representative Wadsworth already asked how you'd be frugal. But I will suffice it to say that we'll be looking at your budget and your process and how we end up with, as I've said many times, recognizing the importance of getting as many citizens connected per dollar as possible. With that in mind, my question is, in my area, many of my constituents looking at if fiber is going by their residents, looking at a $69.95 a month high-speed internet bill, are not going to be able to afford that in light of what they're going to be paying for everything else. And I look forward to the opportunity, as more people are connected, that those numbers would help drive prices down. I'm wondering if you would, how you see the authority looking at the availability and the affordability to our residents, especially in this part of the state where folks don't have the incomes that they have in your part of the state. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Foster. I think that is a huge reason for the very existence of the Connectivity Authority. Addressing affordability throughout the state is a top priority, and I think is complicated on several levels. I think there are federal resources now. I think the FCC created the new version of the Emergency Broadband Benefit Program, providing $50 per consumer, through the new Affordable Connectivity Program, which provides $30 per consumer. The uptake on those programs has been limited. And I believe Director Schaefer has spoken to this committee a little bit about that in the past. And the uptake is limited because it's been a really tough bureaucracy to navigate. So I think one thing that we have the ability to do, hopefully as an authority, is to identify a way in which it becomes easier for consumers to be able to access those direct subsidy. And that's true for residents in all places. And I think as the Connectivity Authority, with digital equity and affordability is top priorities, top 2 of 3 priorities. That's the kind of thing that we'll be able to both allocate precious staff time towards and prioritize in a number of different ways. The other responses to that get to an ongoing conversation that I look forward to having with this committee around how are we intentional around the economics of connectivity in the state? Does it mean more options from a technological standpoint? Does it mean creating places where there are publicly owned infrastructure that helps reduce the cost to consumers? So these are options that we have at our disposal to evaluate more intentionally, and I'm very eager to be able to explore that, because I assure you affordability is as much an issue in your neck of the woods as it is in mine. As is internet performance in general. I will say, as I think most of you have been on calls with me where even my connection here and on the peninsula in Portland has been among the worst. And I will also just say in response, I remember the vote very well, and it was a little bit of a great moment for me in that this authority was actually voted into existence by the legislature actually on my birthday this summer. And I remember your dissension very well because you made several good points.
Thank you. Any follow-up, Representative Foster? Any other questions from the committee? I want to thank committee members for their questions, and Mr. Butcher, you can tell this is a committee with many, many questions and great interest in this issue. And I just add a little addendum comment to what Representative Stewart and Senator Stewart and Representative Foster said. The concern of this committee is not just rural versus urban or different things like that, but in a lot of the board members, they came from the metropolitan Portland area. And that was one of the great concerns. It's not just north versus south or things like that. There are areas in Representative Wadsworth District who represents parts of rural York County. There's a lot of areas in York County that are considered quote unquote rural. There's areas down in my district that are, considered rural. There are areas in Representative Ziegler's district, and every part of the state has different challenges. So in going forward, we just encourage both the governor's office and the commission to try to find individuals who are less Portland centric to be involved in these issues and to be the source of information and understanding of what's going on in the state of Maine. And that's the extent of my comment at this point. We are now about to open it up to members of the public who want to ask questions. But before we do that, just to go over the schedule with the committee, we are scheduled to go, usually we take a break about this time, but I would ask committee members if you're comfortable going forward and just going through the public questions and taking our break at the time that we allow 15 minutes to pass before the vote. Representative Wadsworth, are you comfortable with that?
Sounds good to me, Mr. Chair.
Okay. And just as a precaution or a notice to the members of the committee, I do have a court hearing to attend at 10:45, so I may be stepping off briefly, and Representative Berry will be taking over as chairing the meeting. It's no reflection on you, Mr. Butcher. It's just the fact that things are scheduled at multiple times. I'd ask everybody in the attendees list who intends on speaking just to raise their hands so I can get an idea of how many people. Looks like we have 4, 5, 6 people who are, 8 people who are intending to speak. So my guess is this is going to go past the 10:45 time, and that we'll be sometime into about 11 o'clock before we start to vote. So with that, I will open it up now. The chair will now take comments from persons attending this hearing who wish to speak for or against this nomination. Anyone who has a written statement but who does not wish to speak should have submitted the statement to the committee clerk prior to today's hearings. All such statements shall contain the name and the residence of the person who prepared the statement. A copy of each written statement to the committee at this hearing will be made available to the nominee prior to the committee's vote, and the nominee will have the opportunity to respond to the written comment. And this is one of the reasons why we take a 15-minute break to allow the nominee to see any comments that are submitted at the last minute. Those persons who wish to speak in person have registered with the committee and the clerk prior to the start of the beginning of the hearing will be called upon by Representative Berry or myself, at which time they will be promoted from attendee to panelist status and can be seen and heard the same way the members of the committee and the nominee has been seen and heard. When it is your turn to speak, please observe the following. State your name and place of residence prior to presenting your testimony. Only comments concerning the suitability of this particular nominee for this particular position will be considered in order. All other comments will be considered out of order. After you are done speaking and there is no more questions from members to you, you will be returned to attendee status and the next person will be called. And reminder, when you're returned to the attendee status, you won't have the ability to make further comment or testimony at that time. At this time, I'm going to recognize the first person who wishes to testify. And I apologize for any mispronunciation of name, but we'll recognize Nick Batista as the first member of the public wishing to comment. Jason, I just ask you to promote Nick to the status of a participant. And also, if you could promote John Shea too as well, so we can move directly on to John Shea after that. Mr. Batista, why don't you go ahead and unmute yourself and add your testimony to the committee.
Thank you. Good morning, Senator Lawrence, Representative Berry, members of the committee. Nick Batista with the Island Institute, and strongly in support of Andrew Butcher's nomination to be the president of the Maine Connectivity Authority. The Island Institute, as you all well know, is a nonprofit organization located in Rockland, Maine, and we do a whole bunch of work. Broadband's foundational to all of our community development work, and all Mainers need to have the ability to use high-speed, reliable internet. Andrew's the right nominee to lead the Maine Connectivity Authority and help set up a statewide broadband institution. I submitted some written testimony that talks about some of Andrew's leadership work and skills at building the Maine Broadband Coalition. I think a lot of that was covered in the discussion and the questions and answers that you just went through. I do want to highlight that Andrew has a strong track record of working with Maine's rural communities. And more importantly, for the Maine Connectivity Authority, he has a strong ability to include rural communities in statewide conversations and make space for the voices and the needs from those communities to be heard and incorporate those needs into the work that's happening. And that's really from where I sit as somebody who works predominantly with rural communities. One of my favorite places is Frenchboro, where the year-round population is about 30 people. They're a small, rural, remote community, similar to some of the communities up past outside of Dexter and those areas. It's really about making sure the needs of those communities are incorporated into conversations and discussions and considerations. Also wanted to say that in my capacity as chair of the Connect Maine Authority Board, I have great confidence in Andrew's ability to work with the Connect Maine board and staff and the MCA board to build a strong statewide broadband institution that rapidly closes the digital divide. And I know that Senator Stewart and a few others had questions about how the two institutions will work together and how that happens, and avoiding duplication and making sure that we're all moving forward together. And I think Andrew's skills at organizational development and working with boards and leadership skills will help us get there. So Connectivity Authority requires an entrepreneurial leader who can build an organization while also working with a board and stakeholders on strategies to close the digital divide. That's what I have. Island Institute is strongly in support of Andrew's nomination.
Great. Well, I'll jump in. I don't hear or see Senator Lawrence at this time. So there he is. He's on the phone. All right. So
I apologize, committee members. I had to jump off a minute to take a call for my hearing, but I'll turn it over to Representative Berry. If you could just continue with the people testifying by the public.
You bet. Thank you,
Yep,
Senator.
unmute, Representative.
Yes.
Are you comfortable with that, Seth?
I am.
Oops, I'm back on.
All right. So with that, does the committee have any questions for Mr. Batista? Okay, seeing none. Thank you very much for your testimony.
Thank you.
And good to see you. Hope to see you again soon in the new year. And up next to testify in support of the nomination is Mr. John Shea. Welcome, and the floor is yours.
Thank you, Representative, and thank you to everyone for giving me a moment to speak. I did submit a letter of support as well for Andrew. for this position, but my name is John Shea. I'm the Executive Director of the Piscataquis County Economic Development Council. And as you well know, Piscataquis County is one of the most rural counties in the entire United States. And so we are particularly concerned with not just the issues facing rural communities regarding broadband, but, you know, we're a lower income area. We're very much underserviced in the broadband realm. And, you know, truthfully, because we only have 18,000 people in an area the size of Connecticut, we tend to get politically marginalized. And I want to say that I only got here less than 2 years ago, and I came from Newport, Rhode Island. So there's a bit of culture shock between Newport, Rhode Island and Dover Foxcroft and northern Piscataquis County. But I've been working with Andrew since I first got here, and I have found that he has a great understanding and concern for the issues facing our smaller and rural communities like Piscataquis County. And he's really been instrumental in galvanizing a lot of the stakeholder voices and the unheard voices in our county to engage in a conversation of how we move forward with broadband. And he's certainly been a huge asset to us in terms of our efforts to position a county for this once in a generation opportunity we're going to see in the next few years to obtain significant funding and finally get this 500-pound broadband gorilla off our back. And if we miss this opportunity, I think we're going to regret it for as long as we're all here. And so I want to say that, you know, I really think Andrew is the right person for the right job, this job, you know, at the right time. And I really appreciate the remarks that Representative Foster and Senator Stewart and Senator Lawrence all made, because, you know, my concern also is for how we regard and service and focus on the needs of rural communities. And I can't think of anyone better to do that than Andrew. And I know how well he works with the other players like the Island Institute and Connect Maine and DCD and whoever succeeds them at the coalition. And we want everybody pulling in the same direction. I think that Andrew is just the person to do that. So I strongly recommend his confirmation for this position. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Shea. Good to hear your voice. And are there any members of the committee wishing to ask questions of Mr. Shea? Seeing none, we will port you back over to the attendee panel.
Sure. Thank you.
Next is Paul Toll. Paul, welcome, and the floor is yours.
Thank you, Senator Berry, and well, Representative Lawrence is ducked off, but thank him as well, and all the members of the EUT for allowing me to speak in favor of the nomination of Andrew Butcher. He is, I've had the pleasure of knowing him now for a couple of years in my role as president of a Rustic Partnership, where we represent about 80 businesses in northern Maine. And yes, we are the definition of rural for the most part up here. And I've worked with Andrew for a couple of years. Most notably, you know, there's been a lot of questioning here about is he an advocate for rural Maine? And as Mr. Shea just said, I strongly believe he is, because he's demonstrated that to me. And I phoned him maybe a year or so ago and asked him if he would help us put on a webinar up here, because we're starting a county broadband initiative in Aroostook County where we're going to really engage all these communities, get them to fully understand the imperative of the digital divide and how to overcome that. And he gladly stepped up, agreed to be a moderator of a webinar that we put on. Rustic Partnership hosted. And we had Senator King, Commissioner Johnson, and a few others that spoke on that imperative that I just mentioned. And it really helped to energize and get the entire Aroostook County community, north, south, east to west, to say, wow, this is real. I understand it now. I see what's happening. And I also see the funding opportunities that are going to become available. And so he took a great leadership role, took a lot of time out of his you know, from his office in Portland, his home office with his wonderful pictures on the wall there. Took a lot of time out of his schedule to make sure that happened in Aroostook County. And from that, we we formed a committee of about 40 volunteers that were part of that webinar that said, yes, I want to represent my community, my municipality. I'm going to help. Tell me what I can do to make this work. So that was great leadership from Andrew, and I really appreciated that. And we're off and running. We're going to try to figure out this. How do we deal with about 80 different UTs in towns and cities up here, and how do we get them all sort of on the same sheet of music on what they need to do to fix broadband. So, and I think Andrew mentioned community of practice. That's something that I recently became involved with, and looking forward to what he created with that, because I think that's going to be an inspiration and offer a lot of support to efforts just like ours in Aroostook County to overcome this. So I strongly support nomination of Andrew Butcher, and at this time, if anyone has any questions, glad to answer.
Thank you, Mr. Toole. Thank you for your work with the Aroostook Partnership and leading that effort. Are there questions from the committee? Very good. Thanks for joining us, and you'll be moved back to attendee status now, so you can continue to listen in. And up next, we will hear from Mr. Brian Whitney. Welcome.
Great. Thanks so much, Representative Barry and esteemed members of the committee. My name is Brian Whitney of Augusta, and I'm the president of the Maine Technology Institute. I'm delighted to offer my enthusiastic support for Governor Mills' nomination of Andrew Butcher to serve as president of the Maine Connectivity Authority. While at MTI and shortly after he transferred his talent from Pennsylvania to Maine, I've had the great pleasure of working with Andrew, first in his capacity as lead of the Smart Communities Maine initiative, as well as his most recent positions as Director of Innovation and Resilience for GPCOG and as Director of the Broadband Coalition. MTI's worked closely with the Smart Communities Maine initiative and the Broadband Coalition since we share common goals of encouraging technology deployment and economic development growth. And as such, I've come to know Andrew well, and I deeply value his diligent work, his collaboration, experience, and the desire to get the job done and done well. I believe he's the type of entrepreneurial-minded leader that's needed at this critical time to get the Maine Connectivity Authority launched and operating effectively. I'll also note that one of the collaborations that we've had with Andrew and the Broadband Coalition has been to sponsor a digital frontier series that promotes the use and expansion of broadband across the state. And one of the series topics that was a focus was on farming, forestry, and marine sectors, all large parts of our rural part of Maine. As you probably know, the Connectivity Authority statute was largely modeled after MTI statute that was created back in 1999 under the leadership of then Senate President Mark Lawrence. It's a model that's withstood the test of time, and it's demonstrated that it's an effective approach to encouraging, promoting, stimulating, and supporting technology development and providing careful stewardship of public funds. Andrew and the Connectivity Authority's chair, Tim Schneider, have both reached out and met with me on various occasions over the past few months to learn more about the best practices involved in launching and sustaining a successful public-private partnership like MTI in the Maine Connectivity Authority. So this obviously speaks volumes about his preparation, his industriousness, and also serves as an early predictor of both his and the Connectivity Authority's future success. I wholeheartedly support his nomination and look forward to continued collaboration with him on matters of broadband deployment, technology deployment, and economic development. Thanks so much for your time. Happy to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you. And are there questions from the committee for Mr. Whitney? All right, seeing none, we appreciate your joining us and your leadership for MTI as well. Great organization. And up next, Danielle Lauder. Ms. Lauder, are you with us? And if you're able to turn on your video, that would be great. If not, we understand.
Good morning. Can you hear me okay, Representative Berry?
Yes, we can.
I'm not sure why I don't have a video option, but that's okay. You can hear me loud and clear. So good morning again. Oh, thank you. Join as a panel.
Great. Excellent. That's better.
Excellent. Just needed that panelist. So good morning again, and many thanks, Representative Berry and members of the EUT committee. It's great to see many of you here again. I am Danielle Louder, a resident of Cornville. A little shout out to Representative Grignon there. And I'm also vice chair of the Maine Connectivity Authority. And on behalf of the MCA Board of Directors, I'm pleased to provide comments in strong support of Mr. Andrew Butcher's appointment to the role of president of the MCA as nominated by Governor Mills. As the EUT committee is very closely aware, the MCA was established under Maine statute in June 2021 and charged with a not so small objective of ensuring universal availability of high-speed connectivity and secure, affordable, reliable, competitive, and sustainable communications technology infrastructure to meet Maine's future needs. Further, the MCA is to ensure that all residents, businesses, and institutions are able to take full advantage of economic, health, educational, and other opportunities available through connectivity services, and that existing public and private infrastructure will be used effectively and efficiently in the public interest to provide communications technology infrastructure in all areas of the state, and particularly rural and underserved areas. This is clearly a sizable mission with many moving parts and many Maine communities to serve. The MCA recognizes that alongside unprecedented funding available to states and other organizations for broadband expansion, strong commitment from stakeholders and effective leadership will be vital to leveraging the massive opportunity in front of us. Mr. Butcher possesses the unique skill set, ambition, and collaborative approach needed to facilitate Maine's success in this endeavor. As we've heard through earlier testimony, Andrew has a strong track record of working toward greater access, affordability, and equity for broadband in Maine through his extensive work over the last few years with both the Maine Broadband Coalition and GPCOG. He has a clear commitment toward expanding access for everyone in Maine, especially those in the most rural areas, having actively engaged partners in Aroostook, Piscataquis, Washington, and Penobscot counties through multiple initiatives with the Broadband Coalition. Mr. Butcher is a multidisciplinary cross-sector leader with a track record of success in building collaboration among diverse stakeholders, planning and implementing innovative initiatives, and making big things happen, as we've heard from his efforts in Pittsburgh, here in Maine, and beyond. The Connectivity Authority requires an entrepreneurial leader with the ability to start up the organization, maintain subject matter expertise, and to understand Maine community interests as well as industry needs. Mr. Butcher has the ability to do all of these things and has demonstrated such in his roles with the Broadband Coalition and GPCOG. There are multiple priorities for the MCA to address immediately and will require someone with a versatility of knowledge, network, and context to get the capital working, demonstrate impact, leverage resources, and sustain capacity. Mr. Butcher has this skill set, experience, and desire to get the job done. Given Mr. Butcher's broad expertise and relevant experience in establishing broadband initiatives here in Maine, the MCA board brought him on in a consulting capacity in mid-November to help ensure that a number of time-sensitive objectives were completed quickly and effectively. In that short time, Mr. Butcher has worked closely with the MCA board to identify core short-term tasks and timelines and has been instrumental in achieving the following, in addition to other things. Development of a draft strategic summary outline, which Andrew mentioned earlier, outlining the MCA's purpose, vision, principles, along with core objectives and activities to achieve the authority's statutory goals, and synthesizing input from a wide variety of community stakeholders to date. Under Mr. Butcher's leadership, Maine's application for the American Rescue Plan Capital Projects Fund was successfully submitted to the DOT ahead of deadline during the holidays, which is just step one in securing over $129 million in state block grant funds and the first of several funding commitments focused on broadband expansion and digital equity. We've submitted the MCA's annual board report to the Maine legislature before the end of the year, and deep in work of building strategic partnerships to ensure that the MCA is able to leverage existing expertise, funding, and other resources to the fullest potential in order to reach our statutory goals and really get the bang from our buck, as we've been hearing questions and comments from the committee earlier today. The MCA board has been extremely pleased with the effectiveness and efficiency with which Mr. Butcher has approached these initial yet vital tasks. With his proven track record in establishing the structure and partnership necessary for successful program implementation and growth, including broadband expansion here in Maine, we are both eager and excited for what's to come under his leadership and strongly support his appointment as president of the MCA. And with that, I will conclude. And does anyone have questions?
Thank you, Ms. Louder. Any questions from the committee? Seeing none, we greatly appreciate your service on the board. Best of luck with all that entails, and we'll keep in touch.
Thanks all.
And up next, also testifying in support of the nominee, we have whoever our committee clerk is able to bring in from those remaining. I do believe there are some, yes, there are some that are waiting in the committee room. I think Mark Willett is planning to speak, Nancy Smith, Tim Doak. There we go.
Coming.
Excellent. There you are.
All right.
Mr. Willett, welcome. And if you are in fact planning to testify, please go ahead. The floor is yours.
Appreciate it. Thank you, Senator Barry. Apologies. Thank you, Representative Barry, and all of the committee members. I know many of you, and Happy New Year to those that I know on the committee, and to those that I don't. I hope this year will be a great year for you as well as all of us. My name is Mark Willett. I'm the CEO of Axiom Technologies, an internet service provider based in Washington County in Machias. And I'm speaking today to lend my enthusiastic and unqualified support to Andrew Butcher's appointment as president of the MCA, Maine Connectivity Authority. I'm just getting used to saying that, Maine Connectivity Authority. Axiom's mission, some of you may know, Axiom's mission from its formation in 2004 has been to bring connectivity to some of the most difficult people to connect in all of Maine. Where that mission remains today, and today we stand on the precipice of bringing that mission to all of Maine, or to reality. We need a leader of this effort to be a good listener and team builder, someone who can take in diverse points of view. We need an out-of-the-box thinker who can think creatively, and we need a strategic mind that can take the direction of the MCA board, the legislature, and stakeholders and effectively implement ideas and strategies that will bring tangible results and move the needle. And most of all, we need a person who is as comfortable working in any of our communities around the state as they are at the State House and in Washington, D.C. Together, we all have an opportunity to bring world-class service to all of Maine, internet service to all of Maine, and this is no small task. We need an effective leader to make it happen. There is no better choice than Mr. Butcher to lead this mission, in my opinion. I've had the opportunity to work at pretty high level at the federal government as the chief of staff and district director. I've worked at DECD as the director of business development, and I really think that Andrew brings all of the attributes necessary to really make something happen here, which I think we all hope will happen as soon as possible. He's at the Maine Broadband Coalition. I've worked with him closely at the Maine Broadband Coalition. He's been a strong voice there, and really bringing people together under a common mission, just the skill set that he will need here to make the MCA an effective and impactful agency. In closing, I just say, I trust you will give Andrew your full support as the right person at the right time to make the Maine Connectivity Authority as effective as we hope it will be. We all hope it will be. Appreciate the time and thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you, Mr. Willett. And are there questions from the committee? Okay, seeing none, we appreciate you joining us.
Thank you.
And we'll go next to Nancy Smith. The Honorable Nancy Smith. Welcome back to EUT. and good to see you. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Representative Berry and members of the EUT committee. I am Nancy Smith, Executive Director of Grow Smart Maine. Excuse me. I live in Poland, and out of respect for your time, I just want to highlight some of my written testimony that I submitted yesterday, clearly in support of Andrew Butcher's nomination as president of the Maine Connectivity Authority. I first connected with Andrew in 2018. I actually had to go back through my old emails to find out how long ago it was. And that's when the Maine Broadband Coalition was just forming. And Andrew was exploring this concept of smart cities and smart regions that you heard referenced early by Brian Whitney. This was an opportunity to help Maine inform smart infrastructure investments, public policy, and economic development partnerships, all geared towards fiscal and quality of life improvements. That was a fascinating process. And of course, I've continued to work with him in the Maine Broadband Coalition since then. Andrew is a skilled professional, ably managing complex projects while adapting to changing parameters. And he also is excellent at building coalitions through trusted relationships. He does all of this incorporating the entrepreneurial approach that you've been hearing about to all phases of the work. In addition to those skills, I believe that Andrew has proven his commitment to expanding broadband access to all Mainers. With his work in the Broadband Coalition, we've had 3 statewide broadband summits, the Nonpartisan Broadband Caucus, the coalition's direct community engagement that you've heard about, and these have all benefited from Andrew's creativity and his leadership. We have tremendous opportunities and challenges ahead as we all work to bring affordable broadband access to Mainers while protecting Maine's quality places. Andrew is the right person to lead the Connectivity Authority for this work. And as a member of the Broadband Coalition Advisory Committee and as co-lead of the Policy Committee, I encourage the committee to support this nomination, and I thank you for your time this morning.
Thank you. Are there questions from the committee? Okay, seeing none. Great to see you again, and we'll move you back to attendee. And up next, I believe, the last to testify verbally. We do have some written testimony as well, but Mr. Tim Doak, welcome.
Thank you, Representative Berry and members of the EUT committee. My name is Timothy Doak, and I'm a resident of Fort Kent, Maine, in Aroostook County. I'm also the superintendent of schools of RSU 39, which is the city of Caribou and the village of Stockholm, and also MSAD 20, which is the town of Fort Fairfield. I'm writing today in strong support of Andrew Butcher as the president of the Maine Connection Authority. Andrew has been working in the Aroostook County Broadband Committee for about the past 9 months. His forward leadership for cross-community access to high-speed internet will be the key to expanding critical needs for the fast, reliable internet, not only here in Aroostook County, but what I believe in all regions of Maine. With the recent COVID pandemic, it did not take long for schools and families in Aroostook County to realize the need for fast, reliable internet service. Many RSU 39 and MSAD 20 families, students, and teachers were without dependable high-speed internet for over the last 2 years. During this time period, the pandemic exposed the vulnerability of our regions as schools experienced the inability to have high-speed, reliable broadband internet and connectivity for the needs of our teachers, our students, our families, and yes, our school board members. There were many occasions where we had to purchase locally hotspots for families to put in their homes. And for the families that Senator Stewart mentioned, we went out and purchased cell phone boosters just to get some connectivity for kids so they can continue their education, so board members can actually attend board meetings, and of course for our teachers to teach our students. Andrew, in a relatively short time, has helped organize the County Broadband Committee to establish a working plan for advanced broadband infrastructure right here in Aroostook County. He has the potential to create more jobs. It has the potential to increase competitiveness on the level. It increases opportunities for all of our companies, enhance public safety, provide better and less expensive healthcare systems, and yes, provide a greater educational opportunities throughout Aroostook County and all of Maine. Andrew's knowledge of affordable broadband will be an immediate impact on Maine's private and public sector. Andrew will help create the realization for small businesses, telehealth, and now yes, education K to 16, including post-secondary levels. All three of these sectors are vital for Maine's economic development. I strongly recommend Andrew Butcher to be the president of Maine's Connective Authority.
Thank you, Mr. Doak. And are there questions from anyone on the committee? Seeing no indication, appreciate you joining us, and that should conclude. I'll just ask if there is anyone else looking to testify. I think we have heard from everyone in the attendee panel, so I'm going to take that as a wrap. And at this time, I just want to make sure that we are able to continue on in time for a vote shortly. We will need a quorum for that. But first, all public comments having been taken, the committee will review any additional written comments on the nomination that have been received by the committee. Those are in your email inbox. So I encourage you to look over those again. We will vote on the nomination after that and notify the President of the Senate pursuant to Title III MRSA Section 157 and the joint rules. Our vote must be taken within 35 days, 44 judicial officers from the date of the governor's written notice, so 35 in our case. And with that, the chair now declares the hearing by the Joint Standing Committee on Energy, Utilities, and Technology for Mr. Andrew Butcher of Portland for appointment as the president of the Maine Connectivity Authority closed. And in accordance with the law, we cannot vote on this nomination sooner than 15 minutes after the close of the public hearing. I believe there is at least one committee member, perhaps more than one, who would like to take at least that 15 minutes for a corner caucus, meaning that we will sign off. The caucuses will have an opportunity to connect with each other. And when they are ready, we can come back. But I do first see a hand from Representative Wadsworth. Go ahead, Representative.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, definitely appreciate the 15 minutes. If we could just try to keep it as close to 15 minutes as possible. A few of my members are running up against some time constraints here. So if we can.
That sounds wise. I think that would be better for all of us so we can hopefully still have a quorum. So with that, we will go ahead and break for 15 minutes. Let's plan to come back at 11:05 on the dot. And you can just mute yourself and stop your video in the meantime. If you do need to hop off in order to get on another call, then our clerk will do his best to let you back in afterwards. But hopefully you can just stay on. See you all at 11:05. Okay, welcome back. Just to make sure we have a quorum, if folks could turn on their video, that would be great. Okay, and we have just committee members and committee clerk at this time, but the nominee is still in attendance, as are some of those who testified. Great. So, in accordance with 3 MRSA Chapter 6, Section 157, and with the joint rules of the 130th Maine Legislature, the vote will now be taken by the yeas and nays. A vote of yes will be in favor of recommending confirmation of the nominee. A vote of no will be against the motion to recommend confirmation. Is the committee ready for the question? Seeing no objection, the committee clerk will now call the roll. And Jason, you're getting a full trial today, your first day, so please take it away, but let me know if you have any questions about roll call votes.
No questions. I'm just hoping that everyone can unmute at this point so that we can get through this quickly.
Great.
Okay, thank you. So I'm going to start with my list here. I have Senator Lawrence.
Go ahead.
Senator Lawrence is absent. I have Senator Vitelli, who I can't hear.
We're having a little audio problem.
Hear me?
I
heard you. We can hear you now. Say that again louder. What's your vote? That was a yay. I heard a yay.
Senator Vitelli, yay. Senator Stewart?
Yay.
Senator Stewart, yay. Representative Barry?
Yay.
Representative Barry, yay. Representative Cuddy? Representative Cuddy is absent. Representative Grohowski?
Yay.
Representative Grohowski, yay. Representative Kessler? Representative Kessler is absent. Representative Ziegler?
Yay.
Representative Ziegler is a yay. Representative Sachs?
Yay.
Representative Sachs is a yay. Representative Wadsworth?
Yay.
Representative Wadsworth is a yay. Representative Grignon?
Yay.
Representative Grignon is yay. Representative Foster?
Yes.
Representative Foster is a yay. Representative Carlo?
Yes.
Representative Carlo is a yes.
Senator Lawrence is back.
Senator Lawrence?
Yes.
Senator Lawrence is a yes.
Okay. Count down how many you got. 11?
I have 11.
11 affirmative, 2 absent.
I have 11 affirmative and 2 absent.
Very good. 11 members of the committee having voted in the affirmative and 0 in the negative, with 2 absent. It is the vote of the Joint Standing Committee on Energy, Utilities, and Technology that the nomination of Mr. Andrew Butcher of Portland for appointment as the president of the Maine Connectivity be confirmed. Our vote will be conveyed immediately to the president of the Senate, and the Senate will then take it up when they're able to in session. I just want to say on a personal note, Mr. Butcher, I know you're listening and watching still. It was a pleasure to work with you as part of the Broadband Caucus. Look forward to working with you in this capacity as well. I think that you and all who testified today were certainly very convincing. Obviously, the results speak for themselves. So we're very much looking forward to working with you. I think I speak for all of us on the committee in that regard on the very, very important challenge and opportunity that lies ahead of us. So with that, unless my co-chair has anything that he wants to add, I just want to say that it's great to be back with everyone. Really looking forward to productive, short session. We do have a lot of work ahead of us, of course. Great to have a new committee analyst and committee chair who are jumping right in. I think Jordan's first day may have been yesterday. So, excuse me, Jason's first day may have been yesterday. And he's obviously learning very quickly on the job. We will meet again on Thursday, and Tuesdays and Thursdays generally from now until we need to add an extra day, which may or may not happen. But we meet again this Thursday at 9 o'clock for 3 bill hearings, as you know, and also a couple of PUC reports. So looking forward to seeing you all then. And Mr. Co-Chair, Senator Lawrence, anything else?
Sure, Jess, I just want to say thank you too as well. I did note we had 12 members here of the committee. Representative Kessler was the only one who could not make it, and that's very good. And I realize how difficult it is conducting these meetings through Zoom, but we'll just have to deal with a session, whatever it looks like. And this committee has worked very cooperatively together to make these Zoom hearings go very well. So I know Representative Berry and I appreciate it. We'll see you guys at the session, legislative session tomorrow. And again, if you have any questions or thoughts about the schedule for this session, just let Representative Berry.
And I think Sarah Lawrence froze, so I'll finish the sentence for him. Just let Representative Berry or I know. And with that,
we're gonna be finishing up, sometime pretty soon, like February or March, in our committee work. So things are going to move fast right from the start.
That's right. We need to vote 100% by March 11th. That's the
March 11th. That's knock on wood. That's the legislative goal. Any questions from committee members about the schedule or the procedure for this session? Okay, take care, and we'll see you all tomorrow.
See you tomorrow.
Bye-bye.